Welcome to Season 2 of the Making Bank podcast, where we continue our exploration of South Florida's entrepreneurial landscape with host Keith Costello, co-founder and CEO of Locality Bank. Sit back, relax, and let South Florida visionaries guide you on an entrepreneurial journey from tribulation to triumph, sharing the very stories that have shaped them.
Okay, Steve Nudelberg, welcome.
We're here.
Locality Bank's Making Bank podcast. So happy to have you here with us today.
One of the coolest offices I've been in.
Thank you.
Well designed. Love the whole philosophy. It's great. Fantastic. Congratulations.
And so, congratulations. This is episode 1 of season 2. So very excited to have somebody that I've known a long time and really have admired what you've done. And
Thank you.
Excited to
cool.
sit here and talk today. So.
And vice versa. I mean, certainly your career speaks volumes. You've always been on the front end of things, and I love that as well.
Thanks. So we're going to start, kind of just go back. Tell us, your childhood, where you grew up. We like to start out at the beginning.
So I love when people ask me that because I really haven't grown up yet.
Me either.
For me, I was born in New York. I lived there till I was 14, was very upset that my parents wanted to move. My dad had spine surgery. Doctor
Where
said,
in New York?
So I was born in Brooklyn.
Okay.
Moved to Long Island.
Were you a Yankee fan?
Still a Met Jet guy.
Okay.
Yeah. So Met Jet, Knicks,
Okay.
But at 14 moved, was really uprooted because I had been with all those people from the day I was born, but landed in Hollywood, Florida, and all of the people that were going to Hollywood Hills when I started there were all transplants from somewhere else. So before I knew it,
from New York,
they were all from New York. It was like Long Island's all-star team.
Yeah.
So I loved it, got to love it really fast. And then spent my high school at Hollywood Hills, went to University of Florida, and then returned to Broward County to get into the business world and have been doing that for the balance of my life.
Amazing.
It's crazy, yeah.
Yeah. So you're kind of a native. I mean,
I would consider myself. I mean, people, the way I talk and act, never think I'm from here.
You still got a lot of New York in you.
Correct.
You
and I think it's more of an attitude and a mentality than anything else. I mean, I love going back to New York. It's fantastic. But it's really, really fast paced. I'm there 3-4 days. I'm exhausted. So I like the lifestyle here a lot. I like living near the water and the beach and all the outdoor sports and stuff. So it's a wonderful place to have grown up. My kids, grew up here, played football here. So yeah, I get to travel fairly extensively for what I do. And every single time I land back in Lauderdale, I go, thank you.
Awesome.
It's a great place to be. So.
Well, thankfully you weren't traveling anywhere when the airport was underwater here recently. But
crazy, right? Isn't that nuts, man? Just, biblical stuff.
It was crazy, yeah. So you come back to Broward County, come back to Hollywood after going to University of Florida. Any lessons, were there family businesses or were there any early jobs?
Question. I love
things
that.
like that.
So I grew up in an entrepreneurial family.
Okay.
My grandfather and my dad were in the fashion lady shoe business. So I grew up in the business. That's what we talked about at dinner. That was all about the people in the business, the vendors, the clients, everything. It was just an exciting conversation all the time. So I was hooked early on and knew that I wanted to do something in that entrepreneur sales world. I went to college and burned out on college early. I just said, this is not where I'm going to learn. So I jumped out into the family business. My dad was actually about ready to retire. And he was like, you sure you want to do this? Because he wanted his son to graduate college. And I go, I just don't see it for me. I want the education in business. And there's nothing like being in it. You can teach it in books all day long. When you're in it and you're responsible for paying other people, So I did that. My first adventure was a failure. My dad kind of let go of the reins, let me do it. And it took me a couple years to burn it out, but I learned incredible lessons about people, about expectations, about process. For me, I didn't have set disciplines because I was learning and doing and figuring it out at the same time. And so that big failure turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me, because I had been there, done it, and realized, okay, I'll start over and do it again. And I've been fortunate to have built a couple of biggies. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So you jumped in the family business, and it was like, it was overwhelming almost.
There was a changing environment at retail, which a lot of retailers have gone through. There was a changing environment in location. There were big malls being built, and so the competition was different. And look, I was 25 years old and thought I knew everything there was to know. And I very clearly did not. And managing a business and managing people and managing yourself, was just a great lesson.
That's interesting.
I'm fortunate to have gone through that, fortunate to have great leaders like my grandfather and my dad. I dedicated my book to my grandfather. He was the best salesperson I've ever met in my life, because he always knew how to make people feel special. And I watched that. I got to see that and how people adored him. And everywhere he went, he was that guy. And I admired that, but he broke my back teaching it to me.
Wow.
Old school. That's how you taught, And he said, anytime I knock you down, when you get up, you'll be stronger. That's how I built all of my business. That doesn't play today.
That's
got to be a little bit more soft around the edges. But the education I got early in my life is better than any 4-year degree ever. Now they have entrepreneurial schools and classes, and I'm fortunate I get invited in to speak to those groups. But there's nothing like being in it.
Right.
It's game time.
Well, there's nothing like as you said, experiencing a failure, and you go one way or another, right? You either embrace that failure, you learn from it, and it becomes part of who you are, and you learn from that, or you go the other direction and you just, your life becomes one failure after another. So failure does own you, regardless. What you do with it, it doesn't define you. So that failure didn't define me. That was like, okay, what can I take away from it? And one of the things I wrote about in my book was the greatest failure I ever had. I thought I was never going to get up from. And I did. Our firm at one point was a fairly significant sports marketing firm. The building that is where the Panthers play used to be called the Office Depot Center. I was friendly with the CEO, Michael Yormark, and he said, look, they're going to take their name off the building. I'll give your firm 90 days to find the naming rights sponsor. Our little firm in Plantation would have never gotten that right. First lesson was relationships. So because of that relationship, he gave us the opportunity. We found a naming rights partner. Now, at that time, that deal was $3 million a year for 10 years. So a small little company does a $30 million home run. Like, that would have changed everybody's lives that was involved. I was actually with the client pre-celebrating and got a call that they went with Bank Atlantic. And it was like what? What do you mean? I'm here. I'm like, this is done. I've already spent the commission money, Wow.
And so that failure was the lesson, which I teach to everybody today, is you got to control what you can control. That was out of my control. So I counted on it, which is a false sense of security. What can I control? I can control my behavior. I can control my mind. I can control all of the things that are, and what I did ultimately was help that client spend that $30 million. But at the point of when I got that phone call, all I thought about was victim. Poor me. I can't believe it. My ego was shattered. I had told everybody we were doing this deal. I had shut down all the other things that my company was doing at the time because we were so focused on this, which would never happen ever again. You just do what you do. And what it taught me was that I did everything I was supposed to do. I got it to the goal line, but it wasn't a touchdown.
Reminds me of, you were mentioning Rachel Sapoznik,
Oh,
right?
she's right.
The same similar.
I'm very friendly with her.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
admire her as well. But she's in the game.
Yeah.
And she does it and does it right, and she wins and loses. That's not what success is. Success is way more than just what's on the scoreboard.
So it's interesting. So you said you thought you knew everything at 26. It took me until I was 35 till I knew everything, right? You know?
Again.
Yeah, it took me a little longer to learn everything, Steve, by the way. But, it's interesting when you go through that kind of a humbling experience, how did you go from that to then what was next?
So I had gotten invited into an opportunity early after that failure. Someone said, "Hey, I want you to meet these guys. They're opening a phone company." And I was like, "A phone company? Like, what do you mean a phone company?" And they had already been introduced to cellular. They were putting together all of the nuts and bolts of building a cellular dealer, a communications dealer that was dealing all this stuff. And they wanted a front guy. They said, "We need a guy who can be the front, build the sales team, do all that. And if I did what they thought I could do, there was an opportunity for ownership and partnership and all like that." And we wound up building, $100 million business.
Seriously?
Oh yeah, ABC Cellular was a monster business. I worked, I got to work along some amazing people, but I realized then my gift was taking people from all different walks of life and showing them how to develop business. I mean, there's a guy, so everybody in this market that will hear this knows, but there was a guy that I met. He was delivering Chinese food on a moped, but he had that personality. And I said, "I can change your life." And I did. And he owns a brick paver company that just tipped $100 million.
Wow.
And called me not too long ago and said, "None of this would have been possible if you didn't do what you did." Now, I wasn't an easy guy to work for, but I got the best out of people. And that's really what turned out to be my calling, is that I can help people develop systems and processes that produce unbelievable results, create less friction. In the sales world, there's a lot of friction and it burns people out. It makes them uncomfortable, and there's just no need for that.
What did you see in the Chinese food delivery guy that led you to, because we all come across people what did you see in him that made you say this guy can be an all-star?
So you hit on it. We all see these people every day, but you see them as what they are, not what they can be. And so for me, the guy had an amazing smile. He had an incredible personality, a warming, disarming, just a great guy. And I think what happens in the sales world is people get behind their product, not behind themselves. And nobody buys the product, price, or service. They buy the person, and they're not trained to be the person, be you, because push come to shove, they'll buy you first. And sure enough, that's what this guy did. That's what my whole sales staff were. We had hundreds of salespeople who all were different and unique, but became successful because we created the right process systems every day. And so what the world lacks is consistency. People just don't do the same behavior every day. You do. You're a maniac. You go to the gym every day. You do the same thing. That's why you look the way you look. People are afraid of consistency. Do the same behaviors. Do them every day for a year, for 5 years, for 10 years. And success is there, but everybody wants it yesterday. I did it for a month and it didn't work. So you've been doing it forever.
Yeah.
And so, that's what I saw in him. That's what I developed for all of the people. I'm fortunate. A lot of those people I worked with are presidents and owners of their own companies. And so, for me, that's the reward. That's why I say success comes to you in different ways. Success for me is showing people how to live differently, live better, and do what they love to do. Because if you do what you love, the money is always there.
Yeah, that's such a great comment. And I think it was Simon Sinek I saw doing a talk about how important just what you said.
Yeah.
Like you go to the gym one day, you come back, you look in the mirror,
Yeah,
you're not going to see any difference.
His video is amazing.
Go next day, you look in the mirror, you're not going to see any difference. But over a year, you look at your progress at the end of that year. So what keeps you going is your belief that you're going to achieve those results at some point, right? We've follow that
brought
consistency.
up in this credit card world where I could get it now and pay for it later, and it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And so the power of social media is this unbelievable library that's at our fingertips where you could look at Simon Sinek and you could look at Kobe and The Rock and, any number of personalities putting content into the world, which is part of your
Nudelberg.
diet. Thank you. Yeah, I'm fortunate to be included in some of that, which is super humbling. But all I do is share with people what I do. It's like I'm not making it up. I'm not trying to be like when I meet people who want to be an influencer. You can't want to be an influencer. You got to be able to do what you're talking about.
Right.
And so I live this lifestyle. I get up the same time every day that I have for 40 years. People go, you're nuts. I think that's part of what it takes to be good in business is be a little nutty, Yeah. So I get up. I have the same morning routine. I get about my day and it's not, and I think Simon Sinek in that video said, you can go spend 9 hours in the gym. It's not going to make you better.
Right.
If you spend 30 minutes in the gym every day over a period of time, you will get better. And he says, I don't know when, but you will for everybody. I don't know when my process will kick in for you in business development, but it always does. And those are the people who go, dude, you're a genius. No, I'm not. It's just behavior. Most people are interested in outcomes. We're very interested in behavior. Show me your calendar. Show me what you're doing every day, and I'll show you why you're not successful.
That's awesome.
So it's really simple.
So you had this big success with ABC Cellular. You obviously you had your grandfather who was a big influence, you said, about sales, and you found out you love sales at ABC Cellular, right?
So I guard against saying the word sales.
Okay.
I love the people.
Okay.
I love developing and being around people. That's what drives me.
And if they buy something from you,
and if
it's
I have
even
a
better.
solution that they can use, great.
Right.
But I think that's where people go wrong is they have an agenda. Like, if you don't buy from me, you're my enemy. How stupid is that? It's like, maybe they'll refer you to somebody, maybe they'll buy later on. But it's not a yes or no equation. It's so selling is what I think is dead. I think sales is dead. People wake up every day and say, I need to go sell somebody something, are going to fail all the time. But if I said I need to get up and go meet people and, share what I do, it's so much easier and so much lighter. So I've had success in building my reputation. My methodology early on was I wanted everybody to know me. Mm-hmm. Last name like Nudelberg didn't hurt. It's not like you're going to meet somebody like, there are still people who go, is that really your last name? It's like, yes, that's my last name. But I used that and just said, I don't need to sell you something for you to know me.
Okay.
And my philosophy back in building the phone business was I wanted to be one of 3 choices that you made when you got in the cellular world. Never any pressure to buy. Just, can I be the last one? I want to be one of 3 and let me be the last choice. I'll educate you. And if there's something better for you, I'll actually tell you that. And it worked. So, when you build your reputation the right way, you have a wonderful reputation. You've been in the business a long time. It takes one screw up to ruin that.
Yeah.
You didn't do that. That's what success really is.
So as you're meeting people and you're finding out that you have the ability to help them, and I call it sales, but
right,
but you're doing business with a lot of people. You're creating opportunities. You're helping people, and you're making money for the company, for ABC Cellular, and yourself. Yeah. So after that ends, you decide to do what?
So my whole career, whenever I would work with somebody, ultimately, they would come to this saying, wow, man, you're really on the ball. And it was in reference to the work or the attention. And I said to myself, man, that would be like a really cool name for a company. So when I left the phone business, I exited. I took about a year off, spent it with my 5-year-old at the time, which was the best year of my life still.
Which one was the 5-year-old?
Mark,
Okay.
who was now the president of our company,
Yeah.
which is crazy. But I spent that whole year with him thinking about how could I do what I love to do in an arena that I love to be in, and that turned out to be sports. And so I developed a business called On the Ball. And in the beginning, it was a sports marketing company, but we taught people how to use sports and entertainment to grow their business, because that's what I did in the phone business. I made friends with, I was fortunate, and this is one of my great networking stories. I was at an event, a charity event, and I asked Mr. Huizinga if I could grab 15 minutes with him to hear his story.
Wow, that's great.
And he said yes. And he had me set up with his secretary, and I went and met him. And next thing you know, we did business with all of the teams.
What an incredible, well, first of all, what an incredible person Wayne Huizinga was.
Oh, and I'm afraid his legacy is like not what it was. As the younger generation doesn't really know the impact this guy had on the community.
Right.
Him and his wife were just amazing.
Yeah, this community would not be where it is today without.
And one of my high school buddies was
Wayne.
his number one. Chris, I don't know if you know Chris Brandon.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris, I went to high school. Yeah,
at Hollywood Hills.
Hollywood Hills, yeah. So,
wow. I
so
know Chris.
We were fortunate. People say, well, how did you get that meeting? I asked. But I didn't ask to sell him anything. I asked with genuine curiosity. And so I worked with a lot of sports people in the phone business. The Dolphins were a big client of ours. And when I took the year off and decided I could help people do what I did, I'm like, anytime we had a Dolphin in the showroom, the place was berserk. They would wait online for his autograph. And so we would give the athlete a phone and, say, well, I could teach other companies how to do this. And so my first call was to Don Shula. And I said, Coach, I'm going to open up a business that teaches other businesses how to, use sports and entertainment. I don't need to be exclusive, but I would like to share with people that have a relationship with you. And typical Coach fashion, he said, let me check with Marianne, which he did. And they blessed it. And I had an unbelievable career working with Don Shula, who introduced me to Mike Ditka, who introduced me to Dave Wanstad, and it just...
Oh, so I was going to ask, what is a lesson for you could give to... But I'm going to pull that one, because how many people have... the guts to walk up to a Wayne Huizinga and say, hey, can I have 15 minutes with you? How many people are going to pick up the phone and call Don Shula? So, that is a real lesson for everybody out there. Don't be intimidated. And
the worst they could do is say no.
Yeah.
And there are some assholes, let's face it, people who don't react that way. But, it was such a fun time for me because I really did have faith in myself. And now what I teach people is that same networking event that it took me the right time and energy to be in the room with Wayne Huizinga, which, by the way, that was all around JA, just so you know. That's why I'm a big JA fan, because he was an early pioneer. Right. I went on his plane with him and Terry Styles over to Tampa to look at, so now we were spending money, we were, some ABC could sponsor it in a big way. So, there was a reason why I got in that room, but, the effect of that, now you look at it, and LinkedIn is the same exact thing. It's just one big room where if you're intimidated to ask, shame on you. Yeah. Because you're not going to get anywhere. And so there's no more gatekeepers. There's no more anything. There's just relationships. And what people don't want, and this is a Steveism, is most people are askholes. They call with an ask. Hey, I want to talk to you about my bank. I want to talk to you about my training. They're asking you to do that. I didn't ask anything.
Assholes.
Yeah, don't ask.
Like that.
Don't ask. There's a reason why our stuff sells. You're right. Don't ask. Just chill. Relax. Yeah. You earn the right to talk about your business. It's not, but everybody, and all the training, all the sales training is pound the phones, tell them here's what we are, and we're the best, and we're the cheapest, and we're the... we don't talk about any of that, because ultimately, if you don't like the person, you're not going to engage in the business conversation anyway.
Right.
So when people unpack that and realize, wow, there's really not that pressure to do that. And that's our mantra. Our mantra is all about people. We give much more than we take. And some people pay for it and some people don't. And,
now the ball is still on the ball.
I kept on the ball.
Right?
I kept on the ball through all of this. We developed a service product that we wound up exiting from called Sales Fuel.
Okay.
But because of the network we developed, we were able to, the service offering was, we actually were a high-end business development arm for people. We go sit down with the CEO and say, hey, who are the 25 people you need to meet that will change the direction of the company? And we'll make the introduction. And they go, oh, what are you going to cold call? Or nope, all personal introductions, one-to-one, you to them. Really? What does that cost? Here's the fee. Here's the percentage of deal take. That business scaled very fast. We were in 12 markets in 2 years. And I exited that business, sold everything here, moved to Palm Beach. But I kept on the ball.
Okay.
But on the ball wasn't anything except me. I wrote the book. And then started working with people who asked, they said, hey, you seem to know what you're doing, could you talk to us about it? And I started doing that. And then the book hit. And
when did you write the book?
So I wrote the book, I guess the book is probably about 5 years ago. And I was the least likely to write a book in high school. I mean, clearly I was not on my radar, but people asked me, how were you so successful in a couple of different careers? And it's all process. I have a very definitive set of behaviors that I've done my whole life. Thank you to my grandfather. Thank you to my dad. It was all process that allows you to deal with rejection, that allows you to deal with all of the nuances of being in a business development world. It's a roller coaster.
The fear.
Control the controllables. If I do the work, the result should take care of itself. And so it's a set 27 rules, just disciplines on how I do what I do, what I do when I wake up. And so people were thirsty for it. I wrote the book. And as soon as I wrote the book, it actually took off. It was right at the cusp of when entrepreneurs were starting to write books.
What year again was it?
Probably about 5 years ago, maybe four.
So
2015,
16?
Something like that. Yeah, maybe a little later. Yeah.
So
I might even say, I don't even know.
Yeah. 27 rules in there?
So it's called Confessions of a Serial Salesman, and 2017. Yeah.
Okay.
So my son was coaching college football at the time. He wrote the foreword and shared with people what it was like growing up with me as his dad, because there was just a certain way that we show up. This is the rules. This is how we did it. So his perspective.
So same way as a father.
Exactly.
You had a very.
We're very, very family oriented. We're very.
I see that.
Disciplined about behavior. So I published the book. It does well. We were marketers, man. We knew how to market the book, and that got me speaking gigs. And so I was speaking all over the world.
So you did a TED Talk?
I did a TED Talk.
What did you do the TED Talk on?
So they were doing a TED Talk on social media, and they were, the way they came to me, and they had other speakers speak on the topic, was, is it overloaded? Mm-hmm. And, is social media overloading or overloaded? And are we, is this wasted behavior? And everybody went in agreement. I went the other way and said, overloaded? Are you out of your mind? I go, you have a TV. You can turn it off if you don't want to watch it. Right. You don't have to do social media. Yeah. But if you learn how to use it right, it's the most incredible tool ever, because we never had a tool to market ourselves. You can market the logo, and the logo used to get you in the door. It doesn't do that anymore. Now it's about, how do I market myself? And so you have these broadcast channels, very much like TV, radio, print, that you can use for yourself to tell people who you are, what you do, who you do it with, and why.
That's what we're doing today.
And And so, bang, it comes inbound in a way That's part of why the charm of what we teach people, it's goof proof. It's not like I was this rocket scientist. I just took advantage of the tools that are at our disposal, and people don't do that. They don't think. They're so busy doing. Stop, think, look at what's available, build it right, and it will come to you, and the right people come to you, which is really the best part about, the business world. So, up until the pandemic, I was generally on the air twice a week. It was fun. My trusted companion, who we call, he's our director of MIH, which is a director of Making It Happen. He traveled with me everywhere. It was great. Nobody listened to anything that I said. They loved it. They said, "Oh, you're the greatest speaker. This is fantastic." Nobody did anything in terms of activating the advice. They just said, "Oh, that's the future. Thank you. Thanks for sharing it." Because I was talking about living in a virtual world. And then the pandemic happened and everybody was stuck. And we were the ones who had been shouting for 2 years prior, this is what's coming. I didn't know it would be a pandemic,
right? But
our business tripled overnight.
Wow.
Because people came inbound. They go, "We have no idea what to do. Can you help us?" And we go, "Absolutely." Yeah. And, it just blossomed from there and has not stopped.
It certainly did accelerate everything digital.
Without a doubt. And that's another example of where people got stuck and didn't think through. And my son had just joined the company. It was March, and he had just joined the company as president, and he had obligations. And he looked at me and he goes, "Dad, did I make a mistake?" Oh. And I said, "Dude, no." I said, "Never before has everybody been on the starting line. We all have to figure it out. Man, this is not just me or you. This is everybody is at a standstill. Let's see who thinks their way through it and does what." And in our business, exploded.
Wow.
So, and I do 90% of what I do virtually still.
Right.
I don't have to be in person. I love being here with you.
Yeah.
This is geographically pleasing to where I live. But,
So you have also now you have 3 sons that are in the business with you?
So I have 2 sons.
2 sons, okay.
Mark and Jake.
Okay.
Jake was coaching college football at the University of Florida. And when the pandemic hit, that upended a lot of people.
Right.
And he got to come home and see firsthand what we were doing. And he says candidly now, he said, "Dad, I never knew what you did. I just knew that I didn't really want for anything," which is kind of an interesting perspective. And he went about following his dream. The dream changed because that year of COVID in football was miserable for him.
Yeah.
They got tested every day, and it was just a very difficult year. He saw what we were doing, and he goes, "Would you consider a spot for me?" And he has blossomed and become just an amazing part of our infrastructure in terms of how we think and what we do. And I love working with my boys.
Oh, that's great.
People say, "What's the best thing that happened to you in your career?" This is it.
It's got to be great. Yeah. I mean, I see you guys on LinkedIn. You're such a tight family. And
it's not, the one thing, it's not bullshit. It's real. It is, there's a real bond there. There's bullshit. Real respect. And we are competitive as anybody you've ever seen. So it is no game, man. Right. You got to show up.
I can imagine it's competitive
it's fun. It's great.
With you and your boys. Well, that's great. So you gave us some good advice already. Don't be an asshole. I'm going to remember that forever. I love that one. What other advice do you have for entrepreneurs and business people out there?
So I in my speeches, I come up with a lot of these little sayings that are easy to remember, not so easy to execute, but you got to think about it. This is one that resonated really big last year when I was on the road. Do you ever meet somebody who, while they're talking to you, that they're completely full of shit and are not going to do what they're saying? Happens to all of us.
Yeah.
It's just BS.
Right.
So I unpacked that and did the research, and there is such a thing as a say-do ratio. Mm-hmm. And most people say 5 things to 1 thing that they do.
Wow.
Which was fascinating to me.
Ratio.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
When you start paying attention, you'll see it happens everywhere. Friends, business. So all I said is, if you could make your say-do ratio 1-to-1, meaning everything you say, you actually do, your world will change and everybody around you will notice, because we become okay with people who don't do what they say. It's ridiculous. If I ask you, are you a man of your word? Yeah, of course you are. But you say 5 things and only do 1, statistically. So it is a simple behavior modification that in all of our clients and all of those, that gets voted as the #1 piece of content next to the second one, which is, and this is the favorite rule in the book, most people, when they greet somebody new or they greet somebody they haven't seen in a while, they say, how are you? How are you is an invitation for someone to take what's wrong in their lives and dump it on you. Think about it. The next time you ask somebody, hey, how are you? This is bad. This is my house, my car, my wife. Everything's bad. Well, if you're in the biz dev world, you don't want to start out negative. Somebody's already thinking crummy stuff. So early in my career, I figured out that was a pain point. Anybody that called my company, if they were upset, I wanted to diffuse that any way I could. So we started asking people right from the get-go, tell me something good. And when you read through it, you'll see lots of examples. But if you train yourself to walk up and say, hey, tell me something good, whatever that person says to you, you will own that as part of your relationship forever, because they'll feel good. And you'll be the person that made them feel good. And it's like, we want them around again because they make us feel good, So it's a simple behavior change. And I can tell you the first thing that a lot of people said, my son graduated, my daughter gave birth, whatever's something good in their life. And that's the way I communicate with everybody now. Tell me something good.
That's awesome.
And it leads to them focusing on good, which is a lesson in life. You have a choice. You can focus on all the good, or you can focus on a little bit of bad. But at the end of the day, it's mostly pretty good. But we tend to focus on all the little things that are, okay, so what? It's raining outside. So.
Those are great nuggets of advice there for everybody.
They call them noodle nuggets.
Noodle nuggets.
My audience coined that. I didn't do that.
That is cool.
It seemed to stick.
Oh, I love that. So, with everything that you've done and all your experiences, if you were to say, well, let me go with one. Have you ever had to raise money for one of your businesses? Mm-hmm. And have you ever had experience, like, because we're a bank, obviously, so we're not trying to talk about our bank, but a lot of the entrepreneurs will come on and they'll say, fortunately I met this banker, or I met this, investor, or,
right.
So generally speaking, as people come up, and their capital is always kind of a need for entrepreneurs. So do you have any stories like that you can share?
So there was a time when we shifted the company focus to an incubator. We were an early incubator. Why? Because we were getting introduced to people. And if they didn't have the money to pay us, we as a team made a decision, hey, we'll invest the time and the talent in return for something greater. And then that led to, hey, can you help us raise funds? So I think where people go wrong is they look at raising funds as some separate business activity. It's conversations. Most of the success that I've had, my sons have had, comes from 3 initials. It's RPD: relationships, process, and discipline. So, relationships, every good thing that's ever happened to me came from a relationship. Why do I fly first class? So I can sit down next to somebody who also was sitting in first class and break into a conversation. Why do I go to certain restaurants? Why do I do certain things? Because I want to be in their company. I don't want to sell anything.
Why are you involved in JA?
Yeah.
Not just because you're doing good, but your people you're meeting there.
Always.
Right?
I'm meeting other entrepreneurs, other business people. So I think, if you focus on relationships, whatever your message is, people will talk about it. So, it's, and I'm excited for you to read the book, because some of it is I created this rule early on in my career with my guys and my team, and we did have a lot of women, so I should be fair to that. The Paul Revere method. People go, what do you mean the Paul Revere method? Paul Revere didn't go down the road going, hey, the British are coming. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you. He told everybody.
Right.
But I talk to people, I go, hey, who's your target audience? We only deal with CFOs. Well, every CFO I know is either married or has kids or has parents. And, why would you limit who you talk to? And so we talk to everybody. You want to raise money, you want to sell more product, you want to win a beauty contest, you want to be president of the United States, you got to tell everybody. And for some reason, people are afraid. Yeah. Now we have tools to do it at scale where it does it not your own voice, it amplifies. And so that's why legitimately, and I can show people this, business comes to us every day. And we have yet to spend a dime in marketing because we don't have to. Now we're going to. We just brought on Sarah and we are excited about scaling the business. That won't be for me. That'll be for Mark and Jake.
Yeah.
That's their desire. But the business we have built without any, external marketing, it's just organic, blows people's minds.
It's just you guys. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just Sarah came in. She goes, you've done all of this with no paid advertising, no nothing, because people buy people.
That's great.
Period.
So I think we could probably talk for the rest of the day.
I hope so.
But Ryan's got things to do. So awesome. It
was fun. Great format, great questions.
Oh man. Well, so you've been a great guest. But before you go, we're going to hit you with some questions. This is the lightning round.
Lightning round.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
let's go.
Favorite book. Besides this one.
The Tipping Point. Malcolm Gladwell wrote that book pre-social media. And if there isn't a better genius on the planet, I don't know who it is.
Awesome. Yeah.
So all of his stuff is great. That one book.
And you sent me a book about Coach...
Saban. Yeah.
Saban, which is
Leadership Principles.
Yeah, Leadership Principles, which is awesome. Amazing. I'm reading it. I'm not.
So I have all of I read it and pulled it. I make a document of every book that's like Cliff Notes.
Yeah.
So when you're done reading it, we can compare.
Okay. Can't wait.
Yeah.
So this is a Corey LeBlanc question.
All right.
Corey said, you got to ask Steve this. So, and it's a cool question. So as a teenager, you're down there in Hollywood, growing up. What was a favorite song from those days that you still listen to when you really want to go?
I'm a Doobie Brothers nut, man.
Okay.
So I've seen them 100 times. My boys have been backstage with them. So Long Train Running is still, awesome. Any of their listen to the music. I mean, you pull any of that stuff. But I have taught my boys good music. And they will say to me, 70s music will outlive everything.
Yeah.
So if you look at those groups, the stuff that we listened to was insane.
Yeah, we're circa the same era, so exactly. I'm right there with you.
Yeah. I'm a Motown guy. I like a lot of Motown. I like a lot of the music from that era.
What are you most grateful for?
That's a really interesting question. I'm most grateful for how I think. I've worked really hard to train myself. It's mental conditioning to be the person I am, and I love that.
Hey, one of my favorite books, As a Man Thinketh.
Yeah,
which is you're right there.
So it's been written. So
who would you like to? And this can be living or dead.
Okay.
What person would you like to have dinner with?
What person would I like to have dinner with? There's a Jocko Willink.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
So I don't know Jocko. We've been in the same circles. I've spoken at the same event, but I don't know him. But decorated Navy SEAL who was head of Navy SEAL training, the most incredible human beings on the planet. If you unpack how they train people and what they look for, it's not performance, it's trust.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's really, actually, Simon Sinek does a whole take on Navy SEALs and him and Jocko. So I think a conversation with him, because, we make mistakes and, it costs us money or friends or whatever. They make mistakes and people die.
Right,
So
right.
it's like-
No, Jocko's an amazing.
So I think that would
amazing
be a fun. But I'd love to have dinner with you too. So.
Well, that's easy. we can.
Maybe
We're
not so
going to
easy.
do that, right? We had it scheduled, and I had to, but we're going to get that back on the books. How about a great movie or Netflix show or something?
Without a doubt, Godfather. I write about it in the book. All the things I've learned from The Godfather.
Just one, two, or
So I'm all of
three?
them. I like the genre. I'm a Bronx Tale, Goodfellas, all of that type of stuff. Lots of life lessons learned. One that's a doozy. When The Godfather was talking to Sollozzo about getting in the drug business, and Sonny jumps into the conversation and he apologizes. He said, "I've spoiled my kids." And then when everybody leaves, he said, "Don't you ever let anybody outside of the family know what we're thinking." And I trained my company that way. I trained my family that way. You got dirt.
I'm sure Mark and Jake have heard that line
a couple of times. And they will recite it. They will know it. And, the conversations we have are all about education, how we learn from each other. And there's this phenomenon now called reverse mentoring. I'm learning more from Jake at 25 than I am from some of the people my age.
Wow.
He's just different, and I'm willing to listen and learn. And his take on things is fascinating. But I trained him on everything, music, entertainment. There's always a message the signs are everywhere. So in the book, we talk about The Godfather a lot. We talk about it on our show. Lots of lessons.
Really?
Family.
Okay.
A man cannot be a man until he takes care of his family.
Yeah.
I meet friends that don't pay their wives. I'm like,
women and children.
With you,
women and children can be careless, but a man, he
so
all those lines. There's a million of them.
Lines, they're
right?
so real. They are to be lived. And so, and they loyalty and all that stuff's great.
Someday I may ask for a favor, Steve.
And you know what? That is exactly how I built my business.
Yeah.
Is that I'll do for you first, because someday I'll ask you. And that's how my career
That's what they used to say. A lot of guys, they didn't do favors, they collected debts.
Yeah.
But how about hobbies? Obviously, you're working out, you were telling me.
Yeah, so I'm a beach, outdoor guy. I really enjoy living east, which I did not do the majority of my life.
A boater?
I don't boat. I shouldn't say that. I don't want to drive a boat. I want to be on the water. So I invested in a company that basically takes other people's boats, puts a captain on it, and we do that a couple of times a year. So I could just be on the boat doing my thing.
Right.
And it's called Boat Setter, by the way.
Okay.
And they're here. They'd be good for you to call on.
Okay, great. We will do that.
They're good folks. But I don't want to own a boat and take care of a boat. But my favorite thing is biking. Not cycling competitive. I like to be on my bike and listen to music and be free and just go.
Going down
around the
A1A
beach
and
stop and eat and so I love my bike. It's the most freedom I get.
That's great. Yeah. How can people reach you?
So if you're on social media, it would be hard to miss Nudelberg.
Well, do you still do the huddle?
So we do the daily huddle every day, and it's a phenomenon.
That's on LinkedIn, right?
On LinkedIn and YouTube. The audience is very large. I mean, we get 50 or 60 people live every day.
Wow.
That translates to an audience of 20,000 every morning. It's all organic, which is a phenomenon, but it's part of consistency. We've been doing it every day for 3 years.
Wow.
And we write the show and do it, and I love it. So you can come in through that. You can come in through any Nudelberg, Facebook, Instagram. I share a lot about who I am and what I do. And I do it all myself. I don't have somebody that answers my emails and does all of that, AI crap. It is still people meeting people, and it's my favorite part of it. And while I probably could retire, I'm not.
That's great.
Yeah.
What are you going to do if you retire? Right? You're only riding your bike so much. All right, Steve Nudelberg, thanks so much. It's been a pleasure.
So, yeah, it really has. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Locality's Making Bank podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform to catch the latest episodes, and visit localitybank.com today to learn more about all the benefits of banking local.